As you settle into the quiet of this moment, let your mind drift to a thatched cottage in an English village around 1650 CE, where the air carries the scent of wood smoke, damp wool, and the faint toll of a church bell. In this Puritan world, an accusation of adultery was a heavy burden, shaping the lives of ordinary men and women farmers, weavers or wives through shame, scrutiny, and the weight of divine judgment. This is not a tale of scandal or defiance, but of villagers caught in the web of community and church, their days marked by whispered gossip and the fear of punishment. There's no rush here, no need to cling to every detail. Let the soft glow of a tallow candle, the creak of a wooden stool, and the gentle murmur of a prayer lull you, like the rustle of leaves in a quiet churchyard. Close your eyes, if you wish, and let this journey into the trials of 17th century England carry you toward rest. We'll explore 10 facets of this world, each a window into the lives of those accused of adultery, from the daily routines that exposed them to judgment to the moments of resilience that sustained them. From the bustling market square to the cold pews of a church, we'll move slowly, savoring the textures and sounds of a world both austere and vibrant. The air was heavy with the scent of bread and wax, the village alive with the clink of pewter and the chant of sermons. An accusation was a test of survival. Life was a balance of honor and fear, but there were also moments of forgiveness, quiet strength, and fleeting hope. Let's begin by stepping into a village where an accusation of adultery could unravel a life, wrapped in the rhythm of a world both pious and unforgiving. Imagine standing in a muddy village lane in England in 1650 CE, where the air is sharp with the scent of wet earth, baking bread, and the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer. You're a villager, perhaps a yeoman, a wife, or a laborer living in a world where an accusation of adultery could upend your life, casting you into a storm of gossip and judgment. The village hums with the chatter of women at a well, the creak of a cart, and the distant toll of a church bell. But your day is shaped by tasks that now carry the weight of scrutiny. A single day reveals the rhythm of this life, its pace steady but tense. Let's wander through your routine, letting the sounds of the village, the clink of a bucket, the rustle of homespun, the murmur of prayers settle over you like a woolen cloak, guiding you toward calm. Your day begins at dawn, roused by the crow of a rooster, the air cold with a chill of earthen floors and the scent of damp straw. You sleep on a straw mattress in a shared room, under a rough blanket, the air heavy with the rustle of linen and the warmth of shared breath. You dress in a linen shift or wool doublet, its fibers coarse, the air filled with the creak of a belt and the weight of modesty. Breakfast is simple, pottage with barley, its earthy tang mingling with the smoke of a hearth, the air warm with the effort of chewing. As a yeoman, you tend fields or trade goods, your hands calloused, the air filled with the thud of a hoe or the scent of hay. An accusation of adultery shadows you neighbors whisper, the air tense with the weight of suspicion and the murmur of sermons. If you're a wife, you churn butter or spin wool, your fingers steady, the air heavy with the clack of a wheel or the scent of lanolin. Your marriage, a sacred bond, is now questioned, the air thick with the fear of shame and the hope of redemption. The community is both a refuge and a judge. Can share meals, but eyes watch closely, the air warm with the murmur of gossip and the scent of ale. An accusation means isolation. A glance at a neighbor risks further talk, the air heavy with the fear of court and the clink of chains. Church is mandatory, its pews cold, the air tense with the drone of a minister and the weight of divine law. As night falls, you rest on your mattress, the air quiet save for the flicker of a candle and the distant howl of wind, your body weary from the day's burden. As this world settles, let's shift to the life of one woman whose story reflects the trials of accusation. Let your thoughts drift to a candle-lit cottage in an English village in 1650 CE, where the air is warm with the scent of tallow, stewed cabbage, and the faint rustle of a spinning wheel. Here we meet Margaret, a wife of 32, whose life is upended by an accusation of adultery. Imagine standing beside her, the glow of a candle casting shadows on wattle walls, the weight of a linen apron on her shoulders, the soft murmur of her children's voices. Margaret's story is one of endurance and shame, her days a balance of duty and fear. Let's follow her journey, letting the rhythm of her life, the clink of a ladle, the scent of wool, the creak of a stool, lull you like a gentle breeze, guiding you toward rest. Margaret was born in 1618 CE to a weaver's family in a Kentish village. Her father wove cloth, the air heavy with the clack of a loom and the scent of lanolin, while her mother baked bread, the air filled with the smell of yeast. At 17, Margaret married Thomas, a yeoman, a match arranged for stability, the air thick with the scent of ale and the weight of vows. Puritan sermons taught her the sanctity of marriage, the air heavy with the drone of ministers and the scent of wax. A neighbor's tale of a shamed wife taught her to guard her honor, the air tense with the weight of gossip and the hope of virtue. Her days were spent cooking or spinning, her hands rough from a ladle or wheel, the air filled with the thud of a pestle or the scent of stew. She bore 2 children, each birth a risk, the air heavy with the pain of labor and the murmur of prayers to God. Intimacy was private shared with Thomas in a dark room, the air warm with the rustle of straw and the scent of sweat. In 1650 CE, a neighbor accused her of meeting a laborer, the air heavy with the murmur of gossip and the weight of shame. Hardship was constant. The accusation brought a church court summons, the air tense with the scratch of a clerk's quill and the fear of whipping. Margaret used prayer, the air sharp with the scent of wax and the hope of forgiveness. Gossip spread like fire. A friend's silence stung, the air heavy with the scrutiny of kin and the weight of sermons. Yet there were moments of light. Margaret found solace in her children, their laughter shared over porridge, the air warm with the scent of milk and camaraderie. Church feasts brought hymns, the air alive with the chant of voices and the smell of bread. In 1652 CE, Margaret faced trial. Her defense was her word, the air heavy with the drone of judges and the fear of exile. She was fined, her heart steady, the air thick with the murmur of prayers and the hope of redemption. She died in 1660 CE, likely from fever, her life unrecorded but vital to her village's rhythm. As Margaret's story fades, let's shift to the traces of this world, uncovered by those who seek its past. Imagine standing amid the ruins of a village church, its stones moss-covered, where historians uncover the traces of a society bound by piety and judgment. The year is now, but your mind lingers in 1650 CE, where the air was thick with tallow, ink, and the quiet weight of shame. Villagers like Margaret left fragments of their lives' court records, prayer books, pewter spoons that reveal the impact of adultery accusations. Archives and artifacts are a window into their world, showing a culture of honor and scrutiny. Let's explore these traces, letting their stories settle like dust in a quiet nave, their whispers guiding you toward rest. Historical records reveal a world of order. A parchment court roll found in county archives lists adultery cases, its ink faded, the air once heavy with the scratch of a quill and the scent of wax. A wooden church pew carved with initials marks worship, the air once filled with the drone of sermons and the scent of wool. Pewter tokens buried in a cottage floor mark finds, the air once warm with the clink of metal and the weight of punishment. These finds are fragile, their survival a testament to the village's vigilance, the air thick with the past. The culture was one of piety and control, shaped by the church. Puritan sermons like those of Richard Baxter condemned adultery, the air heavy with the drone of ministers and the scent of paper. Accusations were public, tried in church courts, the air tense with the weight of testimony and the murmur of crowds. Parish records note punishments, fines, whippings, or the stocks, the air heavy with the scent of fear and the hope of repentance. Rural villages were stricter, their elders less formal, the air filled with the bleat of sheep and the weight of gossip. Archaeology uncovers daily life. In cottages, spinning wheels mark women's work, the air heavy with the clack of wood and the scent of lanolin. In churches, prayer books hint at redemption, the air filled with the rustle of pages and the scent of leather. Mysteries linger in these finds. Why were some tokens buried? Perhaps to hide shame. A diary fragment found in a vicarage confesses a wife's fear, its ink faint, the air thick with secrecy. Women's lives, like Margaret's, are elusive, marked by needles or pots, the air filled with the echo of their tasks. The community shaped this world, neighbors watching each other, the air warm with the murmur of gossip in the market. Ministers judged lapses, their voices stern, the air heavy with the scent of wax and the weight of divine law. These traces, uncovered by careful hands, weave a picture of a society bound by honor, yet human in its struggles, the air thick with the scent of effort and shame. As we leave this world of artifacts, let's shift to the lives of the elite, whose accusations carry different stakes. Picture yourself in a paneled manor hall, its walls hung with tapestries, the air warm with the scent of beeswax, wine, and the faint clink of silver goblets. The year is 1650 CE, and this is the world of the elite gentry and magistrates whose accusations of adultery were shaped by the same laws as villagers like Margaret, but marked by privilege. The manor hums with the strum of a lute and the murmur of a prayer, but their scandals carried greater scrutiny. Let's explore their world, letting the rhythm of their days, the flicker of candles, the rustle of velvet settle over you like a silken curtain, guiding you toward calm. The elite, like Sir William, a magistrate, lived in splendor, their homes warmed by fires, the air heavy with the scent of oak and the glow of polished pewter. They rose late, dressed by servants in silk doublets, the air soft with the rustle of fabric and the clink of buckles. Breakfast was rich, bread with butter served on silver, the air fragrant with yeast and the murmur of prayers. Their day was spent in courts or hunts, the air filled with the scratch of quills or the scent of leather. Elite women, like Lady Anne, managed households, their voices firm, the air heavy with the scent of lavender and authority. Accusations were strategic. Sir William faced whispers of a servant's claim, his defense public, the air tense with the clink of coins and the weight of reputation. Intimacy was guarded, fidelity expected, the air heavy with the murmur of scribes and the scent of ink. Lady Anne's virtue was vital, her honor public, the air tense with the scrutiny of kin and the hope of legacy. Diaries like those of Samuel Pepys note lapses, adultery, or gossip, the air heavy with the scent of scandal and the fear of disgrace. The contrast with Margaret's life is stark. Where she slept on straw, the elite rested on feather beds, the air warm with linen and firelight. Where she ate pottage, they dined on venison, the air rich with grease and herbs. Yet all faced the same church sermons and fines bound both, the air heavy with the scent of wax and the fear of divine wrath. The Lord blessed all their altars smoky, the air tense with the chant of ministers and the weight of faith. Ordinary villagers sustained this elite world, their labor invisible. They plowed fields or spun wool, their hands calloused, the air heavy with the thud of hoes or the scent of lanolin. Their meals were simple barley, beans eaten by the hearth, the air smoky from a shared fire. These workers were the village's pulse, their toil enabling its grandeur, the air filled with the rhythm of their tasks. The elite's world was one of power but also exposure. Their accusations were public, their honor fragile, the air thick with the weight of leadership and shame. As we leave this world of wine and velvet, let's shift to the tools and technologies that shaped their lives, the objects that defined their survival. Imagine standing by a cottage hearth, the year 1650 CE, where the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, tallow, and the faint glow of a rushlight. Villagers relied on tools, quills, spinning wheels, pewter spoons that shaped their daily lives and responses to accusations. For people like Margaret, these were simple, tied to survival, while the elite used finer versions for status. Let's explore this world of craft, letting the rhythm of scratching quills, clacking wheels, and the steady drip of wax settle over you like the hum of a quiet market, guiding you toward rest. Household tools were central, their forms practical. Iron quills wrote confessions or pleas, the air filled with the scratch of nibs and the scent of ink. Margaret penned a defense, her hand trembling, the air heavy with the effort of writing and the smell of parchment. The elite used silver inkwells, their letters ornate, the air soft with their shine and the scent of wax. Tallow candles lit homes, their fat flickering, the air heavy with the smell of grease and the effort of tending flames. Work tools were vital. Spinning wheels turned wool, the air filled with the clack of wood and the scent of lanolin. Margaret spun thread, her fingers steady, the air tense with the weight of labor and the murmur of prayers. The elite used carved looms, the air heavy with the rustle of silk and the scent of dye. Pewter spoons fed families, their metal dull, the air heavy with the clink of meals and the scent of pottage. Legal tools shaped accusations. Court rolls recorded trials, the air filled with the scratch of a clerk's quill and the scent of paper. Margaret's case was noted, the air heavy with the weight of judgment and the fear of fines. These tools brought risks. A smudged plea could weaken a defense. A broken wheel could delay work, the air tense with the effort of repair. Maintenance was constant, sharpening quills, oiling wheels, trimming wicks, and a broken tool could disrupt honor, the air heavy with worry. These tools were the village's framework, each one a testament to the effort to maintain virtue, the air thick with the scent of labor and fear. As we leave this world of tools, let's shift to the customs and traditions that gave meaning to their lives, binding villagers to their church and community. Picture yourself seated in a church pew, the year 1650 CE, where the air is cold with the scent of wax, the faint tang of ale, and the soft murmur of voices chanting a psalm. For villagers like Margaret, life was shaped by customs and traditions, rituals that ensured piety and guarded against sin. These practices were a lifeline, offering order in a world of scrutiny. Imagine the flicker of a candle, the rustle of wool, and the drone of a sermon, their rhythm soothing like a familiar hymn. Let's wander through these rituals, letting their cadence wrap around you, guiding you toward rest. Religious rituals were central, their forms sacred. Margaret prayed daily, the air warm with the chant of songs and the scent of tallow. Marriage vows were sworn before altars, the air heavy with the drone of ministers and the scent of wax. Public confessions atoned for sins, the air tense with the weight of shame and the murmur of crowds. Festivals like Christmas honored faith, the air filled with the rustle of cloaks and the weight of feasting. Daily rituals were practical. Margaret wore a cap each morning, a nod to modesty, the air heavy with the scent of linen and the effort of grooming. Villagers wore specific colors, black for worship, brown for work, to signal virtue, the air filled with the rustle of cloth and the scent of dye. Superstitions guided actions, a cross warded off sin, the air heavy with the clink of charms and the hope of protection. God's favor was sought through perfect conduct, the air tense with the weight of scrutiny and the murmur of sermons. Storytelling was cherished, done by firelight. Tales of virtuous wives or fallen sinners filled the air, their cadence soothing as Margaret listened, her hands resting from spinning. The air carried the scent of ale and smoke, the stories of bond between kin, teaching piety or sparking reflection. Festivals offered relief. Christmas brought carols, the air alive with the chant of voices and the smell of bread. Margaret joined discreetly, her cap heavy, the air warm with the laughter of kin and the scent of meat. The community enforced these customs, neighbors watching each other, the air warm with the murmur of gossip in the churchyard. Ministers dictated rituals, their voices stern, the air heavy with the scent of wax and the weight of divine law. These rituals wove villagers into their world, the air filled with the rhythm of shared faith. As we leave this world of tradition, let's shift to the food and sustenance that nourish these lives, sustaining them through their burdened days. Imagine sitting at a wooden table in a cottage the year 1650 CE, where the air is warm with the starchy scent of barley pottage, the faint smoke of a hearth, and the soft murmur of a family prayer. Food was a necessity, often simple, fueling the tasks of labor and defense. For villagers like Margaret, meals were modest, shaped by season and toil, yet they were a pause in a life of fear. Picture the flicker of a candle, the clink of pewter spoons, and the soft drone of a blessing, their warmth wrapping around you like a woolen blanket. Let's explore the tastes, textures, and smells of their table, letting these details settle gently in your mind, guiding you toward rest. Barley was the staple, its grains soft and boiled into pottage. Margaret ate it with turnips, their earthy tang sharp, the air warm with the scent of broth and the clink of spoons. Hearths produced rye bread, the air heavy with the smell of char and the effort of kneading. On festival days, mutton or cheese was added, the air rich with grease or the savory aroma of herbs. a treat that softened the meal's plainness. Offerings to God, bread or ale, were left at churches, the air warm with their scent and the weight of piety. Stews made from beans or cabbage were a daily dish, cooked over a fire. Margaret stirred in onions or thyme, the air heavy with the earthy scent of broth and the steam that warmed her face. Fish, often from rivers, added flavor, its smoky taste sharp, the air filled with the smell of char. Meat was rare beef for elites, broth for villagers, the air heavy with the aroma of fat and the murmur of prayers. The elite dined on venison or custard, the air rich with sweetness and the clink of silver. Vegetables were common, their availability tied to small plots. Turnips or leeks were staples, their earthy taste a contrast to barley. Herbs like parsley, grown in gardens, added sharpness, their aroma cutting through the stew's richness. Fruit was a luxury, apples or berries, its sweetness rare, the air soft with their juicy scent. Margaret shared an apple with her children, the air warm with the joy of a treat and the murmur of thanks. Ale was the drink of choice, its warmth soothing, the air filled with the clink of tankards and the scent of malt. Water drawn from wells was served in wood, the air damp with its purity and the faint taste of moss. Meals were a communal act, families gathered by the hearth, their spoons clinking. The air warm with the glow of candles and the murmur of talk gossip about trials, the day's tasks, or tales of faith. The act of eating was a pause, a moment of connection in a life of scrutiny, the air filled with the comfort of togetherness. As we leave the table, let's shift to the challenges and dangers that shape their lives, from the perils of accusation to the threats of disease. Imagine walking a village lane at dusk, the year 1650 CE, where the air is cold, the candles flickering, and the distant toll of a church bell echoes through the mist. For villagers like Margaret, life was a negotiation with danger, accusations, disease, and communal judgment were ever present. Their impact felt in the quiet moments of fear and shame. Picture the flicker of a candle, the weight of a cross in trembling hands, and the tense silence of a prayer for mercy. Their rhythm a steady pulse in a world of uncertainty. Let's explore these perils, letting their weight settle gently in your thoughts, like fog falling on a quiet field, guiding you toward calm. Accusations were a relentless foe. Adultery risked fines or the stocks, the air tense with the fear of shame and the murmur of sermons. Margaret faced whispers of a laborer's visit, the air heavy with the scent of wool and the weight of restraint. Prayers to God were a remedy, psalms chanted softly, the air thick with the murmur of faith and the scent of wax. The elite faced harsher stakes, their lapses judged in manor courts, the air heavy with the scratch of quills and the fear of disgrace. Disease was a constant threat. Fevers or smallpox swept through villages, the air thick with the smell of vinegar or herbs meant to ward off illness. Margaret used lavender oil, the air heavy with its sharp scent and the fear of contagion. Physicians were rare, their remedies crude, the air filled with moans and the stench of decay. Water from wells could carry filth, its taste bitter, the air damp with the risk of every sip. Ale was safer, but costly, the air tense with the effort of rationing. Communal scrutiny was a peril of its own. A villager's lapse gossip or defiance risked ostracism, the air heavy with the murmur of accusations in the market. Margaret faced judgment for a late church visit, the air tense with the scrutiny of neighbors and the weight of gossip. The elite faced public trials, their sins recorded in parish books, the air thick with the murmur of clerks and the scent of ink. The community was a lifeline, kin sharing prayers or herbs, their voices a murmur, the air warm with the scent of tallow and camaraderie. The village itself was a hazard. Fires from hearths could flare, the air filling with smoke and cries. Yet resilience was the era's strength, a quiet defiance against a world of piety and fear. As we leave this world of peril, let's shift to the education and learning that shaped their understanding of virtue, offering a glimmer of knowledge in a burdened life. Imagine sitting in a church schoolroom by candlelight, the year 1650 CE, where the air smells of wax and ink, and the faint chant of a psalm traces a lesson. Education for villagers like Margaret was simple, shaped by faith and survival, yet it held a quiet power, a spark of understanding in a world of duty. For the elite, learning was richer, tied to law. Picture the glow of a candle, the weight of a prayer book in calloused hands, and the murmur of a verse, their rhythm soothing like a gentle breeze. Let's explore this world of education, letting its faint light settle in your mind, guiding you toward rest. For villagers, education was practical. Margaret learned the Bible and sewing, guided by a minister, the air heavy with the rustle of pages and the scent of leather. Children learned catechism or farming, their hands guided, the air filled with the thud of tools and the scent of earth. Knowledge was shaped by faith. Sermons taught virtue, the air thick with the weight of scripture and the murmur of study. Women memorized hymns, their voices blending with kin, the air warm with the hum of English and the scent of wax. Learning was often oral. Villagers memorized songs or laws, their voices blending in church, the air warm with the drone of verses and the scent of tallow. Reading was rare, writing rarer, reserved for clerks, the air heavy with the effort of listening. The elite read legal texts, their libraries a treasure, the air filled with the rustle of paper and the weight of learning. Margaret learned prayers, her words practiced, the air filled with the murmur of verses and the hope of redemption. Knowledge was shared in churches. Tales of virtuous saints or fallen sinners filled the air, their cadence soothing as Margaret listened, her hands resting from spinning. The air carried the scent of wax and wool, the stories of bond between kin, teaching duty or sparking reflection. Ministers shared rules, marriage vows, sins, penalties, the air filled with the drone of sermons and the scent of ink. These lessons were a bond, tying villagers to their faith, the air filled with the rhythm of shared piety. Education faced challenges. Time was scarce, books costly, the air heavy with the demands of labor or trials. Yet knowledge was a shield. A verse learned could secure forgiveness, the air warm with its power. As we leave this world of learning, let's shift to the leisure and entertainment that offered a moment of joy, a chance to rest in a life of scrutiny. Picture yourself in a village square at dusk, the year 1650 CE, where the air is warm with the scent of ale, bread, and the sound of a fiddle drifts through the crowd. For villagers like Margaret, leisure was a rare escape, a moment to find joy amid labor and judgment. These pastimes, music, feasts, and shared tales were a flicker of light in a pious world. Imagine the glow of a lantern, the clatter of tankards, and the soft murmur of a story, their warmth wrapping around you like a woven blanket. Let's wander through these moments, letting their joy settle over you, guiding you toward rest. Festivals were the heart of leisure, tied to faith. Christmas brought carols and mutton, the air rich with the scent of grease and the chant of hymns. Margaret joined discreetly, her cap heavy, the air warm with the applause of kin and the glow of candles. Harvest feasts saw dances, the air alive with the stamp of feet and the laughter of children. The elite hosted grand suppers, their tables laden, the air filled with the clink of silver and the scent of wine. Music was a constant joy, even in worship. Margaret sang psalms, her voice blending with the wind, the air warm with its melody and the scent of wool. Families played pipes by the hearth, their notes lightening the evening, the air filled with the hum of wood and the murmur of praise. Work could be leisure spinning or storytelling, the air heavy with the clack of wheels, or the scent of lanolin and the rhythm of shared tasks. Games were cherished. Villagers played skittles in the square, the air clicking with wooden pins and the murmur of bets. The elite played cards, the air heavy with the rustle of paper and the scent of wine. Festivals brought spectacle dances or wrestling, the air rich with the smell of dust and the excitement of a crowd. Margaret watched, her apron dusty, the air warm with the joy of a rare escape. Storytelling was beloved, done by firelight. Tales of godly wives or repentant sinners filled the air, their cadence soothing as Margaret listened, her hands resting from sewing. The air carried the scent of ale and smoke, the stories of bond between kin, teaching piety or sparking laughter. The market was a stage, with gossip about accusations shared in whispers, the air warm with intrigue. These moments were a bridge connecting villagers to their world, the air filled with the rhythm of shared lives. As we leave this world of joy, let's shift to a final reflection, tying together the threads of these lives. As the sounds of the village fade, the toll of bells, the rustle of wool, the scent of ale and tallow, let your mind rest in the quiet that follows. We've wandered through the lives of villagers like Margaret, from the rituals that guarded their virtue to the moments of joy that softened their burdens, from the weight of accusation to the resilience that sustained them. Their world was one of piety and scrutiny, shaped by the church, community, and the hum of the market. Yet it was also one of endurance, where shared prayers and quiet bonds offered strength. Imagine yourself now in a soft, warm bed, the air still and the pressures of their time far away, their courage a distant echo. Their lives, though often unrecorded, remind us of the quiet victories that define us in the face of judgment. Let the details slip away like embers fading in a hearth. The thatched cottages, the candle-lit rooms, the taste of barley and ale, they fade into the background, leaving only the peace of this moment. You've journeyed through a world that shaped a society, its villagers' steady hands, and repentant hearts keeping its rhythm alive. Now it's time to rest, to let go of the village's hum and sink into calm. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and let the gentle rhythm of history lull you into sleep, safe in the stillness of now. This episode of Calm, Boring, Sleepy History takes us to 17th century England, deep into the world of a village, where an accusation of adultery could unravel a life. The story is told not with the rush of drama, but in the soothing cadence of daily life, gently uncovering the emotional and spiritual toll of moral suspicion. The journey begins with a sensory immersion into a world of damp wool, wood smoke, and barley pottage, an ordinary village setting infused with subtle tension. In this quiet atmosphere, we meet people whose lives are governed by the rhythms of labor and religion, but also by the fragile balance of reputation. The central figure, Margaret, becomes a vessel through which we experience the human cost of accusation. Her life unfolds gently across the segments, from childhood amid the scent of bread and lanolin, to a marriage rooted more in duty than desire, and finally to the burden of being named an adulteress. Each of Margaret's actions, spinning wool, stirring stew, singing psalms, takes on quiet weight, made heavier by the community's gaze. Her inner life is barely audible over the creak of a stool or the murmur of sermons, but the story makes her endurance a soft triumph. This quiet narrative is mirrored in the social contrasts presented later. While Margaret faces scorn and fines, elite families navigate similar accusations with more polish and greater peril to legacy. Their world is richer in scent and texture: lavender, venison, velvet, but also brittle. Honor once cracked is not easily repaired. The same laws bind everyone, but wealth changes how they are endured. We also see how the tools of life-spinning wheels, prayer books, tallow candles are not just objects but witnesses to anxiety, routine, and faith. The story weaves these tools into the fabric of moral expectation, showing how daily survival is entwined with constant self-surveillance. Through archaeological traces and customs, the past is made tangible. Pewtered tokens buried under floors, diaries found in old vicarages, or the lingering smoke of church incense all breathe softly with the echoes of judgment and survival. Every part of this story leans into slowness, reminding us that moral pain wasn't always screamed. It was often endured quietly, in rhythm with spinning and prayer. This is not a story of rebellion or grand injustice. It's the calm, steady portrayal of lives shaped by suspicion and soothed by routine. It is a meditation on how quiet strength emerges in the absence of defense, and how even whispered gossip can scar as surely as a whip. Margaret's world was not loud, but it was not soft either. This story honors its texture and its silence. In comparing the story of Margaret and her 17th-century peers to today's world, we find surprising continuity beneath the layers of progress. On the surface, our modern society champions sexual autonomy, legal protections, and the rights of the accused. But the underlying structures of public scrutiny, gendered expectations, and reputation management still echo those older rhythms, albeit in digital or psychological form. Where Margaret feared whispers at the well, today's accusations play out across social media. The court of public opinion has traded church pews for Twitter threads and comment sections. Gossip has gone viral. A 17th-century accusation could lead to stocks and sermons. Today it might result in online shaming, job loss, or personal isolation, especially for women. Margaret's silence in the face of judgment mirrors the modern dilemma of women who face disbelief, victim blaming, or moral double standards when accused or defending themselves. Religious judgment in Margaret's time was literal, shaped by church law and sermons. Today, moral policing often arises from social ideologies or cultural expectations, what we should believe, post, or perform. Cancel culture, while distinct from Puritan courts, echoes that same compulsion toward public repentance, exile, or moral signaling. Margaret's need to attend church to maintain respect parallels today's pressure to perform virtue online, to apologize correctly, to show humility, to align visibly with the right cause. Marriage, too, carries lingering burdens. While love is now a declared foundation for unions, societal and cultural expectations around fidelity, gender roles and blame in relationships persist. Margaret's fate as a wife was bound to submission, silence, and purity. Today, modern relationships may be freer, but the burden of blame and scandal or divorce still often falls disproportionately on women, especially mothers or public figures. Her life was an early echo of modern debates on morality and privacy. Even the elite today face similar pressures. Politicians, celebrities, and influencers caught in scandals must navigate public fallout, PR strategy, and reputation management, though with legal teams instead of prayer books. Where Lady Anne had to preserve virtue for legacy, modern women in power must curate persona and maintain control over narratives that can quickly become toxic. In education, access has expanded, but the lessons on virtue and conformity are still taught, just differently. Margaret's verses and songs have become school policies, brand values, or community guidelines. The old moral order hasn't disappeared. It has rebranded. Technology has changed the tools, not always the tone. Tallow candles are gone, but ring lights illuminate modern confessions. Church records have been replaced by permanent digital footprints. In both eras, a misstep could be preserved forever ink once on parchment, now in screenshots. Ultimately, this story reminds us that while the tools and contexts evolve, the human experience of scrutiny, shame, and quiet resilience endures. Margaret's world is not so far behind us. It simply moved more slowly and whispered where we now shout. The structure of this story is built not on climaxes or confrontations, but on a soft, meditative unraveling of a life lived under quiet pressure. The narrative is profoundly atmospheric, relying on the repetition of sensory details, scent, sound, texture, to deepen immersion and lull the listener. The tale unfolds in slow waves, beginning with environmental immersion, then personalizing through Margaret, before expanding again to archaeology, elite contrast, and thematic tools like food and education. What makes this story effective is its refusal to dramatize suffering. Instead, it offers a calm, respectful portrayal of shame as an environmental constant, not a violent rupture. This is a different kind of storytelling power, one that shows how endurance lives in silence, how accusation doesn't need thunder to destroy. Each segment is connected by sensory cues: tallow, barley, wool, candlelight, which create a continuity between Margaret's daily life and the wider world of the village. Even archaeology is approached gently, as if the past were being uncovered by fingertips rather than chisels. This softness deepens the emotional impact, showing how evidence of suffering is often fragile buried tokens, broken pewter, diary fragments. Margaret's character, though fictional, is rich with subtle agency. She survives not through rebellion, but through consistency. Her prayers, chores, and tenderness toward her children form a quiet defiance. The moments of warmth, a shared apple, a whispered hymn, are all the more powerful for being small. This affirms a broader theme. Survival is often an act of repetition, not revolution. The elite contrast works not to create envy, but to expose the universality of shame. Whether you dine on venison or turnips, judgment can find you. The story resists caricature and offers empathy to all, highlighting how honor was both precious and perilous across class lines. In sum, this story isn't about adultery. It's about what it means to live under the gaze of others. It's about how silence, ritual, and labor become defenses when justice is uncertain. And most importantly, it's about remembering that history isn't only made by kings and wars. It's written in the barley grains, stirred by hands like Margaret's.